Hello everybody and welcome to episode 16 of the podcast. For those about to pod, we salute you. You will find our show on all the usual streaming and podcasting services. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. Our handle is @FTATpod. On this episode, we will be discussing 1991 as our My Year in Rock. We will also be going through the latest rock news and we'll be pulling out some of our hidden gems as well. And as it's the summertime, we're going to shine a light and pull together an amazing summer playlist for you all to listen to in your car as you're driving around in this wonderful weather. But before I go any further, let me introduce to you the master of podcast mayhem, my partner in crime, Mr. Matt Rogers. Hey mate, how are you?
Hi Brian. Wow, what a build-up. What a build. I'm not sure I'm the master of any kind of mayhem, to be honest. But that was nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. How are you doing? Are you doing well?
I'm good. Good. Yeah. We are in the summer and it's sun is shining here in Scotland as well as it is in the rest of the UK. Yay!
Great stuff. So, remember last time we met a few weeks ago now, our hidden gem, or at least my hidden gem, was the magnificent album by the magnificent Diamond Head. The album's called Death and Progress. So, and the reason I'm saying that is because one of our listeners in New Jersey in the US contacted me and she said, should I love the podcast? I thought, that's a good start. Thank you. And she said, I really enjoyed the hidden gem. I thought, well, thank you very much again. She said, but it did bring back a very funny and slightly painful memories for me. And I thought, okay, fair enough. And she said, I was on a date in the early 90s when she was in her 20s. And she said, met this guy and he picked me up and we're driving to the date. And he, at the top of his voice, was singing a song by Diamond Head, a song called Run. And she said he wasn't just singing it at the top of his voice, he was screaming it. And she said, needless to say, that was my first and last date with him. But she did say, hi Valerie, by the way, if you're listening. She did say it reminded her of that date, and she hasn't got that song out of her head ever since. Maybe she still hasn't. So I thought that was cute because we do like to remind people through the My Year in Rock or Hidden Gems about years gone by, really, memories, good and bad and funny. So I thought that was cute. Anyway, so
and another plug for Diamond Head.
Well, of course, I can't help myself, really. So actually, I can't help myself. It happens to be another song off Death and Progress. I mean, it's almost subliminal that I'm using. I'm quoting Diamond Head song titles. Over to you for the news, Brian. Am I evil? Oh, oops, I did it again.
Are you evil? Well, you will be evil if you keep mentioning Diamond Head. Diamond Head are great. I'm not adverse to a little bit of Diamond Head from time to time. You do play it.
Good.
So yeah, what's happening in the world of rock? Couple of things. I have my good friend Keith to thank me for sending me a couple of days ago the new Iron Maiden single, which is called The Writing on the Wall, which is fantastic. Sounds very Celtic, bit Irish, but Thin Lizzy, big country with the harmony guitars, etc. Bruce is sounding great. Again, Kevin Shirley is producing the album, and it just sounds brilliant. And what's great from a Maiden perspective is the singles out. The new album, Senjetsu, hopefully I've pronounced that correct, is scheduled for release on the 3rd of September. And it's a whopping nearly 82 minutes long for a 10-track album.
I know, incredible. Yeah, I've heard that song. I like it, actually. It's quite folky in a sense. You're right. It's got that kind of Celtic feel. There's a killer solo in it. I assume because Adrian Smith co-wrote the song with Bruce Dickinson, that it's Adrian Smith's solo. It's sort of recognise. I don't know. You probably know. guitars and stuff.
It sounds like a couple of guitar players. There's definitely Adrian's probably of the guitar players that are in Iron Maiden. He is the one that seems to construct his solos quite well. He's very structured in the way in which he looks at things, and he's probably the more melodic of the three guitar players. So I can definitely hear him. But it doesn't sound like just one guitar player. And Maiden over the years have been, they kind of farm, they're quite fair. Dave Murray, Yannick, and Adrian do share things about it. But that was a pleasant surprise. The writing on the wall as Maiden, and Bruce is sounding good. So that was a good start to the week. Other new albums and releases that have come out. The Foo Fighters side project, the DG's Heel Satin, the covers of the Bee Gees. I've listened to it. What have I learnt from that? That the Foo Fighters are a very, very, very talented band, and they can turn their hand at most anything. I didn't think that Dave Grohl could get up that high as a singer, singing all of the Gibb Brothers parts. And I listened to it and I went, okay, that was fun. I'll not listen to that again.
No, fair enough. But they're one of these bands that, they got their tongue in their cheek quite often.
Very much.
They are fun.
Yeah.
And we've said that several times. If you go to a Foo Fighters gig, maybe it's just me, but I do look forward to the bits at the end of the songs or the beginning of the songs with Dave Grohl does his little chat to the audience.
Yeah.
He's great.
And the cover, Foos are brilliant. They'll do Queen's Under Pressure with Taylor will be singing it, or and they'll pull out some Ted Nugent tracks, etc. The Foos are just, and when they've added the keyboards and the additional musicians on live, they can do anything they want. Rush. Yeah. What and you've already mentioned in previous shows about Kiss Guy, and which is just YouTube dynamite. And the final piece of news, you were talking at the last show about auctioning off memorabilia with Kurt Cobain with the sale of the self-portrait that he did. And there's another auction that is underway in the US for Jason Becker. So for our listeners who don't know who Jason Becker is, Jason Becker was one of the young up and coming guitar players in the 80s who was doing, the virtuoso shred guitar of Paul Gilbert, Greg Howe, Marty Friedman, all of the really, really fast LA guitar players. And Jason was in a band with Marty Friedman called Cacophony, and he got his big break in the mainstream by becoming the guitar player who replaced Steve Vai in the David Lee Roth band. And Jason, and we'll talk about 1991 later, but Jason appeared on a little late enough, which is the David Lee Roth album from 91. Jason played in that album. It's actually a very, very good album. But he never got the chance to perform it live with Dave and the band because he contracted, or I'm not quite sure how he got it, but he got motor neurons disease, ALS, and he's been living with ALS now for 30 years. And the guitar community and himself have rallied around Jason to help him with his medical costs, and he's been putting some of his guitars up for auction. And the first 3 guitars that Jason's put up in his collection have raised a whopping $230,000, Matt.
Wow.
Yep. So all of the guitar players, Herman Lee, Paul Stanley, Andy Timmons, Satchel out of Steel Panther, they've all put guitars forward, signed, etc., just to help out with Jason's bills, etc. So yeah, really good. And I would say if anybody is fancying knowing a little bit more about Jason and Jason's story, his film is called Not Dead Yet, and it talks about his life as a musician, how he and his family have coped with ALS, how his dad developed technology where Jason can really only communicate with people now through his eyes.
Oh, really?
And he has been composing music over the years by using his eyes aligned to a computer. And I think he's actually got an album coming out quite soon. So, yeah, an auction for a good cause, Matt. Yeah, that's my news for this episode. What about you?
Well, a couple of things. So two things. One, I think the Winery Dogs are back. Now, the Winery Dogs are a supergroup in the truest sense. Mike Portnoy playing the drums, who we've talked about, an amazing virtuoso drummer.
Yeah.
Billy Sheehan on the bass, amazing virtuoso bass player. And Richie Kotzen, who's a shredder guitarist and good singer, who we talked about in the context of Smith Kotzen. So, they do these kind of little teasers on social media, these bands. Maiden have just been doing it for the last few weeks with their new album. So the Winery Dogs, I'm looking forward to that. They've had 2 albums out. I've seen them a couple of times on their UK tour of London. as we've discussed in the past, where they dance a European tour and their only stop in the UK is in London, which is fine by me.
Absolutely, very fine by you. Not so much fine by me.
Yeah, not very fair on the rest of the country, obviously, even Scotland. So anyway, Winery Dogs, watch this space for more Winery Dogs news. And the other thing, which I'm quite excited about, is Judas Priest, who I have been a fan of since 1979. They are releasing, to celebrate their 50-year career, they're releasing a 42 CD box set, which it includes every single album and live album and studio album they've done to date, but also 13 unreleased discs of material.
Wow.
So they've clearly been having a bit of a clear out. They've been looking down, as we said, down the back of the wardrobe, down the side of the sofa. And but 42 CDs. I mean, that's like a collection right there, isn't it? It's basically Priest done. If you're a CD collector, not many people are these days, actually, particularly in this era of downloads and moving back to vinyl. I'm sure there's a vinyl version of it. So I'm looking forward to it. I love Priest, and they're great, and I really am interested, particularly the unreleased stuff. So I think that means that they trump just about every single one of these recently released, multi-disc box set, because wow, 42 CDs.
I'm just thinking, just think about that number 42 yes. CDs. Whenever I got my first CD, which was it was Out of the Silent Planet by King's X, was the very first CD I ever bought.
Okay, King's X mentioned number 1.
but no, it was. And I'm just thinking, that was my first CDs. I was still buying LPs and cassettes in the 80s and 90s. It probably took me maybe about a year to amass 42 CDs. And now basically the Priest is going, there you go. There's the entire collection. There's 42 CDs,
Yeah. They were very expensive when they first came out. CD players and CDs, and like everything, of course.
Yeah.
Over time, the costs reduce. But I remember, CDs were like £14-15 each.
Yeah.
So you didn't necessarily buy one. If you waited a while, rather than now they sort of £10, $7.99 or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, of course, I can't overlook the fact that you and I are going to a festival this weekend. We're
Yay!
going to a rock music festival. And I'm so excited, I can hardly contain myself, frankly. You can hear it in my voice. You can hear the excitement, I'm sure. But I'm very, very excited. Looking forward to seeing you. You and I haven't seen each other in person for 2 years.
For 2 years, yeah.
Since the middle of 2019, when we were at another festival. So we're going to Wales. We're going up a mountain to the Steelhouse Festival. Great bill. Looking forward to it. Meeting up with some of our festival friends.
Yeah.
Johnny and Matt. And just going to be great. Just so excited. Friday to Monday, loads of bands, maybe a couple of drinks.
Who knows? Maybe we'll have maybe a couple of beers.
Yeah, I think so.
A couple of beers. But yeah, and I said to you at the time, I was gutted on this. The headliner on the Sunday should have been Europe, and I'm surprised I haven't talked more about Europe than King's X, but I'm sure I'll rectify that over the shows. But so I'd have liked to have seen Europe because they always put on a good live show. But the lineup's great. You know, it's predominantly UK bands, but across the whole weekend, you've got Choir Boys, Wayward Sons, Chris Barris, Therapy, who I'm really looking forward to see.
From your part of the world.
From my part of the world. I remember seeing them. I saw them, you know, in my 27-year tenure at university. I did see Therapy at uni, The Darkness. But the special performance I'm so looking forward to is to see Bernie Marsden. Bernie with Nev MacDonald from Skin. That will just be fantastic. To hear, I'd like to think that Bernie will be peppering his set with lots of the classic Whitesnake material.
For certain. And it'll be mainly people on stage singing. No, we'll have a good old sing song. Certainly the Whitesnake songs.
Exactly.
But Sir David won't be there.
He will not be there
to sing. I do enjoy going to festivals with you, Brian. I've got some great memories of going with you. And Brian, for those who haven't been to festival with Brian, he's got his own little routine. We've all got routines, but we've been to so many that I know what's going to happen. So I like to see every single minute of every single festival, absorb as much as I can. So I say, right, so the first band on at 12, which means we need to get inside the arena at 11:30, get a beer, get a position by 10 to 12, and we're done. We have a usual spot, stage right, or as you look at the stage, the left-hand side as you look at the stage.
Yeah.
And but anyway, Brian, however, is a little bit more chilled in that he'll say, yeah, okay, I'll see you there. And normally saunters down from wherever he's been, relaxing, snoozing, probably early afternoon, cap on, sunglasses, but normally a bottle of water in your hand.
Yes.
And obviously a King's X t-shirt.
There's got to be a King's X. Yeah. If anybody's at Steelhouse this weekend and you see a bloke walking around with a King's X t-shirt, it's more than likely going to be me. So say hello.
Probably Brian. And we were at another festival, and do you remember that time when I saw that other guy wearing a King's X t-shirt? And I said, Brian, go and talk to him. Go and make a friend. Go and make a friend. And you didn't, which is probably just as well, really. There's two of you, two King's X fans. Go and talk. Go and play together.
Yeah. It was like you were setting us up. It was like
a little play date.
It was a play date.
Play date.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, so yes, we are very excited. I'm looking forward to seeing you, of course, my friend.
Yes. I'm hoping not to lose a set of car keys. That's if I can get through a festival without losing a set of car keys, I'll be happy.
Yeah, that would take up an hour if you told that story in itself. So yes, looking forward to it. And of course, next time we do a podcast, we will tell everyone about it, and we may even record some bits and pieces while we're there.
Yes,
which would be hilarious.
That would be good. That would be good.
Alrighty, let's move on then, Brian.
Okay. Yep. So last episode, I set you the challenge.
You did.
For your year in rock is 1991. Very quiet year in rock, Matt. There wasn't really much happening, was there?
Not much happened at all, actually. No.
You must have been really struggling to come up with a list of albums.
It was up there with the year 2000 in terms of... if anyone remembers the year 2000 year in rock we did a few weeks ago, that was a challenge.
Yes.
1991. I do remember it well, actually. It was a good year and for music, but also a sad year in that we lost Freddie Mercury late in the year to HIV, and I think that was a big loss. He's left a big hole, Freddie Mercury. I don't think there's anyone. I mean, he was a unique performer, and much missed, and there's never been anyone since then who's probably come anywhere close to having his level of charisma and showmanship and frontmanship, or front personship, I should say. But we lost him. Sadly, we also lost Steve Clark from Def Leppard.
Yeah.
He was only 30, I think, which is very, very young age. But he had his demons, which in the end claimed him, sadly. However, it was a great year in other ways. It was one of those years, we've talked about this a couple of times, in that sort of 10-year cycle, in a sense. Previously, we talked about sort of 1969, 70, the birth of metal and Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath. Then we talked about sort of 80, 81, the new wave of British heavy metal and that kind of almost birth of thrash, if you like.
Yeah.
And then fast forward 10 years or so to 1991, pivotal year for lots of reasons. Probably the birth of grunge, 3 pivotal grunge albums released that year, which we'll come on to. But some huge albums released that year by bands, probably in a way their high watermark. For example, REM released Out of Time that year, which was a massive album, still a great album to listen to, with Losing My Religion and Shiny Happy People and so on. I mean, almost a greatest hits album in itself.
Yeah.
Van Halen released probably my favourite of the Sammy Hagar era albums, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, which is a couple of great songs on it. For example, Top of the World and Pound Cake. But what I remember at the time, and certainly Van Halen tapped into this, and other bands did too, MTV had really, really taken hold in 91. And you can almost picture the videos that accompanied, for example, Enter Sandman off the Black Album came out that year. Also a variety of the songs from Use Your Illusion, the Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, the Guns N' Roses, for example, Estranged. I mean, the video that accompanied
goodness,
song,
yeah.
it was just, epic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was an interesting year from a video medium and also obviously an album perspective. And I touched upon a few of the albums that I mentioned. Probably if I'm honest, one of my favorite albums that year was the first Spin Doctors album. Now, we haven't talked a lot about Spin Doctors.
No.
But their first album, Pocket Full of Kryptonite, was released in 91. And it's fantastic. It's in that kind of funky sort of Dan Reed Network, Living Colour sort of groove about it. Do you remember that? Do you remember the Spin Doctors?
It's a great album, yeah. Two Princes. It was quite funky. I was lucky enough to have a friend of mine who turned me on to Spin Doctors, and it's what time is it? It's really really funky. But they were. I think the drummer went to Berkeley. They're top notch musicians.
Oh yeah.
And when they came back together, they hadn't been to the UK for years. I think they probably came back for the 20th anniversary of their debut album, and I went to see them in Edinburgh, and they put on a great show. Very loose, very, as you say, very, very funky, and they jammed a bit. Very good album. You could probably say it's one of those bands who probably suffered from putting out a fantastic debut album, which set the mark high. And did they ever really do anything after that eclipsed, that album?
Not. No, their next album, Turn It Upside Down, 1994, was sadly nowhere near as good as Pocket Full of Kryptonite. I've got to mention a couple of songs on the album because I want them to be on the playlist. Little Miss Can't Be Wrong, which I love that song.
Yeah.
It's got a killer riff. Jimmy Olsen's Blues. And of course you mentioned Two Princes earlier, which I think has been on every single dad rock, Father's Day, driving rock compilation ever since. So that was good. The first Pearl Jam album came out so this is one of the 3 pivotal grunge albums I think that came out that year. Pearl Jam released 10.
Yeah.
And it's called 10. I don't know whether you know this, Brian, because their favourite basketball player, Mookie Blaylock, wore the number 10. I thought that was quite cute. Nice little homage to their favourite.
And they were called that. That was the name of the band before.
Indeed, that
they
was
were
their
called,
working name
Yeah.
for a little while until they discovered or decided on Pearl Jam. But yeah, great album. Fantastic songs. Even Flow, Alive, Black, Jeremy. I mean, just a great, fantastic debut album.
One of the best bands I have ever seen.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to say. Eddie Vedder, just actually, without even picking out individuals, as a band, they just, the connection they have with their audience, I would say I'm an occasional fan of Pearl Jam. I have a few of their albums. I wouldn't profess to know a lot of their material, but to see them live, they're in the Springsteen category of, you come on stage, the set changes every night, they'll take requests, it's an organic, it's just not, we're going through the motions here, and Eddie changes things up. Honestly, I know we'll get to see them next year when they play Hyde Park.
Yeah,
in fact, I'm going both nights. They're a band that everybody should have on their bucket list to go and see. Pearl Jam, they're phenomenal.
Agreed. Because Metallica, I think I mentioned it earlier, Metallica released the Black Album that year, which was huge. Produced by Bob Rock, which was a bit of a diversion from their previous sort of production style. He'd worked with...
there was some bass on it.
Well, for a change, yeah. There wasn't much on the previous album, Justice for All, but certainly there was some bass on this. And I remember at the time, he was a controversial choice because he'd worked with Motley Crue, who were the sworn enemies of everything that Metallica stood for, that kind of LA strip, sort of glam band, makeup, you know. But I think what they liked was the sound that he got on the Dr. Feelgood. I think it's the album Dr. Feelgood, isn't it? But certainly that feel, that late 80s sound that Metallica.
Sonic Temple, if you don't mind me saying, the Cult's album Sonic Temple, which had come out
as well.
He produced that as well too, because that's the Cult. The Cult actually supported Guns N' Roses and some of the dates on the Use Your Illusion tour.
That's right.
And they had really slimmed. You know, they'd moved away from the UK indie rock. You know, She Sells Sanctuaries is a great song, but there was a very, you know, that sort of Susie and the Banshees type of jangly guitar. And when they went into Sonic Temple, it was, you know, Edie Chow, baby, Fire Woman. And I think if you watch the documentary on Metallica, on the making of the Black Album, they do rip into Bob Rock whenever they can.
Oh yeah,
you know. But sonically, he was a busy boy, because I know I mentioned it slightly earlier, because he in 1991 he also produced David Lee Roth's A Little Ain't Enough album. So busy guy.
Indeed, a great album and some killer songs on it. I mean, we talked about Enter Sandman earlier, but also Sad But True. I mean, I think I must have the biggest, heaviest, chunkiest riff ever.
Yeah.
Also, Nothing Else Matters, of course, which we talked about last time. It's been recently covered by Miley Cyrus and others.
Yeah.
So that was great. And then finally, just to mention Nirvana, of course. Talk about grunge. Nirvana released Nevermind in 1991. Just amazing year for albums. And I bought all these at the time. You know, I certainly bought Pearl Jam's album and possibly Nirvana when I was in our trip in America. And, you know, just, again, groundbreaking stuff. And it really did. And I remember the time it kind of killed off anything else. It was like survival. Grunge basically came along and the rest just sort of thought, you know, we're gone. I mean, the glam things died. Thunder, famously, UK band, were scheduled, I think the same for FM as well, possibly, the UK band FM, but certainly Thunder, I think, was scheduled to go on a UK tour. Was scheduled to go on a US tour. And that got canned because basically grunge came along and they said, we can't support a tour. I think they turned their attention, or whatever record company they were with, turned their attention to, you know, the next big grunge thing. And do you remember, it was the grunge look, the plaid shirts and the sort of baggy jeans and boots.
Sneakers, yeah.
It became a fashion sort of thing. Even I had a plaid or check shirt, as we call them in Britain, a check shirt. I probably had it anyway. I just happened to kind of just tune into the... Because I'm not a very fashionable person, as you know, Brian. But yeah, just an amazing year for music. And anything to add, Brian? I've got some films to add, by the way. I talked about...
All right, okay. Yeah. When we talk about grunge, there's I'll not steal your thunder on films, because there really is one film that deals with grunge amazingly well with a fabulous soundtrack. But my whistle stop tour through 1991... can you remember the first number one single in 1991? It wasn't Cliff Richard.
Not Bryan Adams. Not the Bryan Adams.
No, that was later in the year. We started 1991 with that lovely Christmassy New Year song, "Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter."
Yep, I remember it.
So we started off very well. As you say, Bryan Adams released Waking Up the Neighbours, and for 15 weeks in the summertime, we were dealing with that video from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I love Bryan Adams.
Not too much, didn't it, in the end? Everything I do it for you.
Yeah, it was...
After about week 5 or 6, I think we were just... No, please, no. We were turning over when that was on TV. Yeah, I know what you mean. But what else?
Yeah, but I'm just going to... There was a few albums where...
How old were you in... What, you were at university?
I was 22.
So you're still at university?
I was still at university. I was on my placement year.
Oh, well, you still had about another 5 years to go there, didn't you?
I did, but what was interesting is I'm pleased you put Nevermind on the list, because I don't have it.
Oh, do you?
I don't have Nevermind.
Oh.
I don't.
Well, I'll rectify. I'll send you a copy. I'll order you a copy.
Thank you.
If I find a cheap one on eBay, I'll send it to you.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
I'm one of those people that it wasn't until they released the MTV Unplugged album that they, after Kurt's passing, that's when I was introduced really to Nirvana, and then I got into it. So 1991 for me didn't include Nirvana at all. But it was such an eclectic year. As you said, 1981 was an interesting year. 91, I'm just going to rattle off some great albums so like you, I can stick them in the playlist. You talked about Freddie. Queen released Innuendo, which was again a return to form for them. Yeah. Innuendo, the single. I'm going slightly mad. Obviously, the bittersweet double A side of Bohemian Rhapsody with These Are the Days of Our Lives, which was on it, which was Freddie's last video. Mr. Big released Lean Into It, which was a band I went to see that year, and they were on fire. The Chili Peppers put out Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic. More Than Words got to number 1 in the Billboard 100 in the States. You were talking about MTV and video. You can just remember Nuno and Gary and the black and white video. It was fantastic. U2 released Achtung Baby. Again, a band at the top of their creatively, to be able to come back with an album following the Joshua Tree, as interesting as that was, and to tour it in 1993, the Zooropa tour, U2 put out a fantastic album. 2 bands I want to call out, if you don't mind.
Sure.
It's a great band from Australia called Baby Animals.
Right.
Baby Animals released their debut album in 1991. You can see the lineage between Susie DeMarchi's vocal, she was the lead singer, all the way through to Lizzie Hale. Susie's one of those great female singers with the real, that kind of Pat Benatar grit, just a real good rock singer. So they released their debut album, Baby Animals. I absolutely loved that album. They got a lot of, again, thanks to Kerrang. Check out Baby Animals. Yeah. And they're still going to this day. Susie, Susie's. She had problems with her throat which lost a little bit impetus for the band in the mid-90s. She married Nuno Bettencourt. But she was one of the singers who was rumoured to be replacing Michael Hutchence when Michael Hutchence sadly passed away in INXS. So, fantastic singer. Check her out. Another band that's worthy of mention from Houston, Texas.
Hang on. Is this who I think it is?
They're not a three-piece. But they actually were very, very connected to King's X. There's a band called the Galactic Cowboys. So,
right.
Yeah, the Galactic Cowboys got quite a bit of interesting press through Kerrang. They were... their debut album's fantastic. Very, very eclectic. Quite thrashy. I would... To me, they sound like a melodic version of Faith No More, but then chucking a little bit of the detuning and the King's X sound. So they would have gone out and toured. So the Galactic Cowboys album was released in 1991, which is I'll chuck a track on the playlist for anybody who doesn't know the Galactic Cowboys. But as you say, there were so many great albums in 1991 that were released. You know, we could do a whole show on them.
Maybe we should. Actually, you know, when you mentioned Mr. Big, you reminded me. To Be With You was released in '91, and obviously off the Lean Into It album. There was quite a lot of power ballads out there at the time, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Every Rose Has Its Thorn. Obviously, Guns N' Roses had a few. Don't Cry, November Rain, and you mentioned. More Than Words earlier.
So I've got
for power ballads.
I've got a confession to make on that album, and this is interesting. So when you listen, if you buy an album, so if you think about the album Lean Into It, it's got green tinted 60s mind. It's got Alive and Kicking.
The Power Drill song.
Yeah, Power Drill. I'll probably get it wrong and say Daddy Lover. Yeah. Yeah. But I will be totally honest with you. And this happens to me with a lot of albums. I had Lean Into It on cassette. And I would listen to Lean Into It, and the first side's got all the banging rock tracks, and then you flip it over and you've got tracks I'm doing this off the top of my head. You've got tracks like Road to Ruin, which is a great, great song. Voodoo Kiss. The last track on Lean Into It is To Be With You. And I bought the single To Be With You thinking it wasn't on the album because I never got it was one of those ones where sometimes I don't listen to an album the whole way through. I'll get focused in on, oh my goodness, the rockers. I genuinely didn't listen for maybe weeks and months to the last track on the album, and which was To Be With You. So bad me. Well,
indeed, but don't beat yourself up too much. I've got to give a shout out to my niece Zoe's son. He's just leaving junior school to go to senior school, and he's quite a colourful character. Is Dylan, and he has been known to entertain his classmates with 80s power ballads in the classroom, which I think is fantastic for a junior school lad to sing songs for his classmates.
Good
lad.
Good boy.
Lad. Anyway.
Hey, Dylan.
Right, let's move on. That was good. 1991. A couple of films, by the way. Just wanted to mention the Doors movie came out that year with Val Kilmer in the role of Jim Morrison. Do you remember that film? You always chuckle as if, yes, I remember it.
No.
I was in it. Or
No. I just remember. I whenever you mention Jim Morrison and the Doors, I just think of Wayne's World 2.
Yeah. That was a few years later.
Yeah. No. It was. I do remember. It was Oliver Stone. Oliver Stone directed it. Yeah, it was quite a. Val Kilmer plays the part very well. You know.
Yeah, indeed. And the other one, of course, that we can't fail to mention, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey came out that year. And if any self-respecting rock fan will have seen both, well, it's 3 Bill and Ted films now, actually. But certainly Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey was a lot of fun. It was on TV recently, and I think it's just about stood the test of time 30 years on. So, yeah, a couple of movies just to remind people of that era. I thought the Doors movie was okay, and I got the soundtrack at the time, actually.
I think I have the soundtrack, but I remember buying it on DVD and watching it. Actually, do you know what? I think I bought it on VHS and watched it.
Yeah, for old time's sake. Right, shall we move on, Brian?
We will indeed.
So we thought it'd be a good idea, as it's summer in Britain, not everywhere in the world, of course, but it is in Britain, and the sun's shining, which is quite rare in Britain for the sun to shine. Certainly, and even more rare for Scotland. It's that big. By the way, it's that big orange thing in the sky. I don't know whether you. That's what it is. Just in case you forgot what it looked like.
Well, you know me with my pale complexion and propensity for drinking alcohol and getting sunstroke.
Yeah,
I'm not good in the sun.
I'll keep an eye on you this weekend. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Although we might, it's more likely to get rained on this weekend. But anyway, so where were we? So summer songs. We thought it'd be a good idea just to have a little chat about our favourite summer songs.
Yep.
Whether they invoke images of the top down or on the beach or just hanging out with a beer and outside and just chilling.
Yeah.
And you've got one which I think is the epitome of summer songs, haven't you?
Yeah. The first off the bat for me when I think of driving in my car, listening to tunes, it's Don Henley's Boys of Summer. It evokes that dreamy, warm California sentiment in me. It's a summer song.
Yeah, it's got some good lyrics on it as well.
Yeah,
I think I don't know who wrote it. I assume Don Henley wrote it, but there's a line in it. There's a couple of good lines in it. I saw a dead head sticker on a Cadillac, and for years I thought, what on earth is a dead head sticker?
Yeah,
and then I think I was watching a documentary about the Eagles or Don Henley or something like that, and it's a sticker relating to the Grateful Dead band. So a deadhead is a fan of the Grateful Dead. And I thought, it all makes sense now. For years I thought it was something more sinister, you know what I mean? There's also a really cool line in it about, I'm driving past your house, I'm driving by your house, even though I know you're not home. I'm not sure why you do that. So it was a bit odd thing to do, isn't it, really? But it's sort of cool.
Well, he definitely wasn't a Deliveroo or an Amazon driver because you know they always check if you're in the house if you're going to drop something off. So
well, that's true.
It is.
Or Amazon, they leave it in the little shed or in the porch or with a neighbour. So
I don't think that would work with the imagery that Dawn was trying to put across. That Boys of Summer is about a delivery driver going around. There's an interesting fact about that. As we talk about it, it is a classic song. It's a classic 80s rock song. One which Mike Campbell, who wrote the music for, gave to Tom Petty first. And really? Tom Petty passed on it. Tom didn't.
Oh, right.
Tom didn't. He didn't see it sitting with the Heartbreakers. So that's how it got into Don Henley's hands. I have no idea. But Mike Campbell is the co-writer on that track.
Yeah, from the album "Building the Perfect Beast," which I'm sure you've got. Of course,
I do indeed.
I knew that. I mean, I could pretty much name any album, and I know you've got it.
It's. Do you know what? Don Henley was signed to Geffen Records, and there's a track that Don Henley does called I think it's "I Will Not Go Quietly."
Oh yeah, I know that song.
Know that song? And there at the time, I'm not quite sure which album it is on. But the additional vocalist on that track is W. Axl Rose.
Ah, that's right. I think I heard that somewhere.
Yeah. So before Guns N' Roses made it, and I think 1986 was the year that Appetite was released. It blew up in 1987 and 88 over those 2 years. But Axl Axel was on as a singer in that Don Henley album.
Okay.
And you can hear the vocal. You can hear that little counterpoint vocal against, like, Don Henley's an amazing singer, but you go, that's Axel. So
yeah. And to order Don Henley, funny enough, the next song that I had in mind, Hotel California. Now, it's not overtly a summer song. In fact, I don't think the Eagles are almost the epitome of sort of feel good summer, top down FM radio, wind in your hair. It's a bit like the Beach Boys in a way. You think of them, you think of, Take It Easy or Desperado or, those kind of out in the desert songs.
Life in the Fast Lane.
Life in the Fast Lane, which we don't have. We don't have a fast lane in this country, by the way, just in case you were wondering that. You're supposed to stick to the inside lane, Brian, by the way. When you're driving down from Scotland, please bear that in mind.
Okay.
Hotel California, because it's got those kind of evocative lyrics.
Yeah.
A dark desert highway, cool wind in my hair. It's just, you're there, aren't you? You're out in the desert, approaching a shimmering light and so on.
I think,
I don't know. It's not, as I say, it's not overtly a summer song, but it does give you that sense of, being out in the open and approaching the Hotel California. And I think you find, and you're a musician.
Thank you.
Much more than I am, of course. Only just, but quite a lot. Stuff in a major chord is always very, upbeat. Minor chord stuff, I talked about Everybody Hurts earlier, which I think is in whatever minor chord, that minor key rather, that's in. Anyway, so Hotel California, great tune. I've got another one for you, if I may, while I'm on a roll. 99 in the Shade by Bon Jovi. Another band that likes to write feel-good songs. 99 in the Shade. It's all about going to the beach with your friends. And just hanging out. Maybe you got your boombox on, annoying people within, everyone within about half a mile of where you are with the music you're playing, too loud, and just hanging out on the beach. The video itself and probably the song content is a little bit suspect by today's standards. But, a cool song all the same that evokes images of just hanging out, being on the beach. 99 in the Shade. It never gets that hot in this country, thankfully. Unbearable, wouldn't it? Jeez.
Yeah, can you? I have a funny feeling that most of the bands that we are going to put forward for our summer playlist are going to be based in the United States of America or warmer climes like Australia. Like,
you say that. I mean, Waterloo Sunset, for example, by the Kinks. I think it's a beautiful song. And maybe this one is more the fact that it evokes the imagery. You and I know Waterloo Station, the Thames, but again, we've been there. On a warm summer's evening, the sun setting, over London. So it's not all about being the beaches of California necessarily. But over to you, Brian.
No,
I want to talk about one particular band and one song that you enjoy from that era.
To me, the ultimate summertime band is Van Halen.
Yeah.
And it can either be Dave, it can be Sammy, or it could be Dave on his own. So if I was to look at it and go pick a track from Van Halen, the original Van Halen, I would go with Panama. It's just that there's the video, there's Dave in his Panama hat, he's on his motorbike, there's the middle eight, which all goes down really, really cool, and Dave's using his husky voice, doing his whatever he says. I'm not quite sure if we can say it on podcast.
What was it? I can't remember now. Blimey, my mind's gone blank.
I remember reach down between my legs. Pull the seat back.
We don't really put it off, do we? We're not quite.
Well, you can imagine if I went into full Northern Ireland accent. Reach down between my legs. Pull the seat back.
It's more of instruction, isn't it? Really?
It is, and at a point in 50 meters going forward, when I placed my hand on the dashboard, I would like you to apply. I've turned it into Panaman's now become a driving test.
Yes, indeed.
So
Dave Lee driving instructor.
and then you go into the Sammy era, and you've got like Summer Nights, When It's Love. There's such a good, but I the perfect mix of a summer rock song for me is California Girls, which is, you've talked about the Beach Boys. They are and Dave doing California Girls. It's so tongue in cheek, stick the video, and he can do all of that vaudeville type little wink to the camera and stuff, and it suits it suits Dave to do that. So those are a few of the tracks that evoke summertime for me.
Yeah, fantastic. Just an honorary mention to Summertime Girls, of course, by the great Y&T, and also.
Where did you hear that from? Where did you get Y&T from? I can remember the first time I heard it.
It's where was that then?
It was BBC Two. It was where I started my doctorate. Where I started my doctorate in AOR music.
Oh yes, Doctor of AOR.
Doctor of AOR was probably No Limits. BBC Two.
Yeah.
It was like on a Tuesday evening with Jenny Powell.
Yeah. I remember her.
Yeah, I remember Jenny Powell's name, and a blonde-haired bloke called Andy.
No, Tony, his name was.
Oh, was it Tony? There you go. Yeah. So I saw Summertime Girls on that. They had Huey Lewis. I also remember seeing Sister Christian performed by Night Ranger. Thank you. So they really introduced me to a lot of American AOR through No Limits. Yeah, so that's where I first heard Summertime Girls.
Yeah, it's a great tune. Yeah. Very, very summary. The video is a bit suspect now, by the way, so be warned if you find it on YouTube. Don't blame us. It was a long time ago. Different times.
Different times.
What about Terry Wogan there for a minute? Right, where were we? Right, so that's summer. Hopefully everyone enjoys it. Please send us your ideas, because Brian will put them on the playlist, won't you, Brian?
I will put them on the playlist, and for this episode, what I'll do is I will turn the playlist into a collaborative playlist. So any of our listeners can add in their favourite summertime tunes. So whenever I'm driving all the way down from Scotland to Abbeville, I will listen to the playlist and see what everybody puts on as their summertime tunes.
Yes, indeed. That will be fun. That'll be fun. I'm sure there's some crackers out there that we've overlooked. Okay, so shall we move on, Brian?
We shall. We move on to this is your part of the show.
Well, it is. So it's Hidden Gems time.
You're making that longer. You're eking this out now.
I held on to that note as long as I could. Wasn't very impressive, was it?
It was long, but maybe not as long as Gary Moore when he holds that note for Parisian Walkways.
That's true, actually. I'll work on it. But I do like that jingle that I invented, and I patented it, copyrighted, of course. Yeah. Just in case anyone thinks about stealing it. Right. Anyway, Hidden Gems time. So, what have you got for us this time, young Brian?
I got two. I got two hidden gems.
All right.
I'm being greedy.
Well, I've got two as well, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, good for you. And you'll probably trump me as you always do. First hidden gem for me. Yeah. First hidden gem. Foreigner. Unusual Heat. Right. Fantastic album. However, it only charted 117 in the Billboard charts.
Ouch.
It was ouch. As you said, 1991, grunge killed a lot of AOR. Didn't have Lou Gramm on it. Lou had left the band at this point, and they had a young singer called Johnny Edwards on it. It is an absolutely stonking album. The first 4 tracks are brilliant. It's quite a rocky album. Johnny Edwards kind of gave a bit of oomph to the band. The standout track is a track called Moment of Truth, which I will put on the playlist, and I'll sneak a few others on as well too. So that's my first one. Second hidden gem is it's a re-release. It's a special release of the Almost Famous soundtrack.
Right.
Yeah, I remember buying it at the time and feeling cheated because I wanted to get all of the tracks from the fictitious band that was in Almost Famous, which was a band called Stillwater. So Stillwater were the band in the film, and all of the material that they played was original material, Fever Dog, and it was like really Zeppelin-y. And only now, with bringing out the super deluxe version of the Almost Famous soundtrack, are you able to get that material from Stillwater, which has got Mike McCready. So it's obviously Nancy Wilson is involved in it, Peter Frampton, and all of that material hidden in the soundtrack from Stillwater is absolutely killer. So my two hidden gems, Foreigner, Unusual Heat, and the re-released, new packaged Almost Famous with all of the demos, tracks, and all of the additional.
Great.
There you go.
I look forward to that. I love that film.
It's fabulous.
Really cool film, was it? Year 2000 that was released.
Oh, was it really? I thought it was earlier. Yeah.
No, it's 21 years old now. And it's got some... everyone remembers Kate Hudson being in it, but there's lots of people in it that are sort of, slightly in the background. Frances McDormand's in it, Oscar-winning actress Frances McDormand's in it. Billy Crudup plays Russell. Do you remember Russell?
Russell Hammond.
He does, exactly. He does that Golden God thing, which I think allegedly Robert Plant did originally.
Yeah.
And Patrick Fugit plays William Miller. Do you remember William? He's the young fella. I think it's based on I think it's
Cameron Crowe.
Cameron Crowe.
It is. It's Cameron Crowe.
Yeah, it's a great film. I'm going to have to watch that again now.
Jason Lee's the lead singer in Stillwater from My Name Is Earl.
That's right. Yeah, fantastic, Jason Lee.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, it's hard to compete with that, though. That's a really...
You always say that and then you go, boom.
Well, I do, but I mean, the thing is, the more episodes we do, the more difficult it gets for me to dig out a hidden gem that's actually hidden, particularly. But anyway, this week I've got a couple. First is a book, because I do like a book, Brian, as you know.
Yeah.
And I just want to... It's quite a recent book. I want to draw everyone's attention to this, because it's quite good. It's very good. And it's by Adrian Smith of Iron Maiden. We like Adrian. And he's, as we've said, he's one of the... it's a secret weapon of Iron Maiden. And he's released a book, Monsters of River and Rock, My Life as Iron Maiden's Compulsive Angler. It's a long title, actually, but it's basically his autobiography. But mainly, it's his anecdotes and stories about being an Iron Maiden, but also stories about his experience fishing. And you don't have to be a fishing fan to like it. It's quite fun. I mean, it's quite technical, rods and reels and all that sort of stuff. But it's very well written, and it's just great, and a nice insight to growing up in London in the 60s and 70s. So check that out, Monsters of River and Rock by Adrian Smith. And the other one, which I wanted to just talk about very quickly. So I watched probably for the second time. I watched the Richie Blackmore story documentary recently, which is a few years old now. It's probably 4 or 5 years old now. John Lord's in it. Actually, it's more than that, because John Lord's in it, and he sadly passed away in 2012. But it's really interesting. It basically charts Richie Blackmore's story from a young child, young guy, learning the guitar through to Deep Purple and Rainbow, and then up to date with his dalliances, let's say, with sort of medieval folk music through his collaboration with his wife, Candice Knight, and now they formed Blackmore's Night. But a good watch. He comes across quite well, Richie Blackmore, and there's lots of people in it that are very, 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 very kind of... what word am I looking for? Complimentary. And there's lots of people in it that are very, very complimentary about how great his guitar playing is. And he's not the easiest person to deal with, but it's a good watch. If you like Rainbow and Deep Purple, check it out. Brian,
he's a cad. The best a cad. What I love, he's one of those. You know the way they talk about you've always got a prankster in your band, and Richie took it to new levels of being a prankster, and but he was very, very principled about how he did the business. I can remember I can imagine how David. I can't imagine how David Coverdale would have felt his first ever gig with Deep Purple in front of 250,000 people in California, and then Richie decides to number one, blow up his amps and nearly burn Ian Pace to bits. He then takes a guitar to camera, starts smashing that up, and just before they came on stage, Richie locked himself in his dressing room because he'd clearly stated contractually that Deep Purple weren't going to come out on stage until the sun had gone down, so that they could use their whole light show. So everybody's going, come on, Richie, we need to go on. It's 9:15, and the lights hadn't gone down, and Richie locked himself in it. So he seems to be quite single-minded and focused, which is what I love about him, because Deep Purple were probably at the time in the mid-70s. I think everybody will talk about, the influence of Glenn Hughes and David Coverdale on Mark III, which didn't interest Richie as much as the Mark II version. So what did Richie do? Richie goes, there's the lead singer in the support band from a band called Elf. I'm going to go and do Richie Blackmore's Rainbow. He goes and does that. Second album, keeps Ronnie, gets rid of everybody else, and then he's on that. He just seemed single-minded and focused that every lineup of Rainbow that he was working on, he knew exactly what he wanted. And to have Ronnie James Dio, Graham Bonnet, Joe Lynn Turner, Ian Gillan, and, Richie just... he was so single-minded and focused around what he wanted, and I don't think he really gave a hoot about what anybody thought. I love him for that.
No, great. It's a really good documentary, and he comes across, as you say, eccentric and obtuse and opinionated and so on, but he's still lovable at the same time. I loved the story, as you were saying, when they were doing California Jam, and he got his roadie to load up his amp with explosives, and it blew up so loudly that it blew Ian Pace's glasses off.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The drums, which I thought was hilarious, and they got arrested for that, or at least they tried to be arrested. And also he mentioned, funny enough, that the Joe Lynn Turner era doing Street of Dreams was his kind of, that was what he was aiming for with Rainbow.
That's correct.
So all his career had been striving for that kind of sort of, whatever sound you want to call that. It's a great song, Street of Dreams, written by Joe Lynn Turner and Blackmore himself, of course, and quite commercial. But check it out. Really, really good documentary. Some funny stories about pranks and lots of input from Steve Vai and Joe Satriani and Coverdale and the late John Lord, and Graham Bonnet's on it. And by the way, Graham Bonnet, he's excellent on social media. Check out Graham Bonnet. Did one album with Richie Blackmore, but he's again very complimentary about the great man.
So shall we put? You've mentioned Richie. So give us a couple of tracks then that we'll put on playlist.
Highway Star. How about Stargazer?
Cool.
How about Tarot Woman? Oh, the list is endless. Long Live Rock and Roll, Street of Dreams we mentioned, Since You've Been Gone, All Night Long. There's so many to mention. Huge. I mean, they weren't all written by Blackmore, of course, but certainly some great playing on those albums. I'll let you chuck in a few others, Brian.
I'll do that. You know me, I'll chuck in Burn.
Yes, of course.
I'll chuck in Burn, which is the ringtone of my phone. And probably, Gates of Babylon.
Yeah, fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
Fantastic stuff.
So there you go.
That was it. That was Hidden Gem time for another... Can't resist that. For another episode. It's been fun, as always, Brian. And, I'll see you. I'll see you at the weekend.
See you at the weekend. All right. Thanks, everybody, for dialing in.
Don't putting any weight, by the way. If I see you, don't. First thing I want you say, don't say, hey, man, you put on weight. Don't say that, please, because we'll fall out. All right.
Okay.
And I look forward to it. So, yes, thank you, everyone, for listening. As always, thank you for subscribing. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and get in touch, Facebook or at FTAT Pod. See you next time.
See you, mate. Take care, everybody. Bye now.
Bye.
For those about to pod, we salute you is a Mealy Rogers media production. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.